You're probably here because you want to start shooting video. Well, I'm going to need my coffee first. So this series assumes that you are brand new to video, that you've never shot video before other than on your phone, and you don't really know what you're doing. So I'm going to try to show you all my equipment, tell you what it's for, tell you what I think that you need. You don't need all this stuff, I promise you. The only reason I have all this equipment is because I had a video and photography business before I started my YouTube channel that I lost because of COVID. I pivoted to starting a YouTube channel with Climate Change Cheddar, doing what I love, talking about climate change and all sorts of other stuff, making money for climate relief efforts. So if you're into that, by the way, go ahead and subscribe. That would be great. But I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about video. We're going to go over cameras. We're going to go over lenses, audio, tripods, drones, camera bags, batteries, memory cards, lights, everything. This is going to be a 4 or 5 part series. In this video specifically, I'm going to be going over cameras and lenses. This isn't all my equipment. I didn't have enough space to put everything out. I've sold a lot of stuff. So yeah, let's get started. So there are 5 necessary pieces of equipment that you need to start a YouTube channel or to start shooting video in general. You need a camera, you need a lens, audio, lighting, and a computer that you can do editing on. So first things first, can't have video without a camera. So I have here the cameras that I use on a regular basis, minus the camera that I'm shooting with right now, which is a Canon 1DX Mark II. It's a little dated. I got this camera 3 years ago, but I still to this day love that camera. I love the way that it looks. It's a tank. It's huge. It is not the easiest camera to shoot with, but I got it in the moment because it shoots 4K 60 frames per second. 60 frames per second means that you can slow your footage down and have a nice, smooth, slow motion shot in 4K. I also got it because I did photography for my business. I would not recommend dropping $6,000 on a camera if you don't know what you're talking about. First things first, you have SLRs, you have DSLRs, which are what these cameras are and what that camera is. Then you have little point and shoot cameras like the Sony RX100 Mark VII. You just turn it on. It has a lens built into it, has a little flip screen so that you can see yourself whenever you're shooting. These things are amazing for what people call run and gun shooting, where you're just shooting footage on the fly. You literally just zip this thing up in your pocket and you're good to go. You have action cameras like these GoPros that you see right here. This is the GoPro Hero Black 9 that I got for Christmas. I haven't used it yet. I'm super excited. This is my drone. This is my DJI Phantom 4 Pro. I absolutely love this thing, and I'm going to get into if you should buy one or not, depending on what kind of footage that you shoot. Last but not least, your phone. Depending on the type of videos that you're shooting. If you're shooting TikTok videos, for example, this is all you need. I'm going to show you some footage from the very first video that I did for this channel where I stayed in a tree for 72 straight hours to bring awareness to climate change. And I used this and my phone interchangeably, and sometimes my phone even looked better than this camera. Alright, these are some clips from my very first video that I shot for this channel. I picked this video because I used every camera that I own so you can see what the different footage looks like from the different cameras. So this is a drone, obviously, up in the air. I'm sitting in an establishing shot showing you that golden tree that I'm going to be staying in for the next 72 hours so you know where I'm at in space and time. This is my handheld Sony RX100 Mark VII. I should mention as well that this camera takes excellent photos. Most people actually probably buy it for photography. All right, here is my phone at night. It actually looks surprisingly pretty good with a light behind it, obviously. Then this is back to the handheld Sony. Back to my phone. There's a little bit of a difference, but not too much. Back to the handheld Sony. You can see there's some blown out highlights in the background, but nothing too big of a deal. Handheld Sony, it looks pretty good. More of a depth of field than you would get with your phone. I used this for most of my shoot just because it was so easy to shoot with. It actually looks pretty good when I'm zoomed in pretty far on this. And then this is a goofy shot that I have right here going back and forth between my handheld Sony and my GoPro 7. But you can see whenever I'm doing the Ken Burns effect on the GoPro footage, it starts to get pretty grainy looking, but the Sony performed better. Sony, again, I could definitely tell the difference between using my Sony or my phone for these daytime shots. They just look better. Switching to the GoPro. And the GoPro looks pretty good. This is a GoPro video time-lapse. You can do a photo time-lapse as well and stitch it together, but it's just easier to do a video. This is the 1DX Mark II GoPro time-lapse. And this is my phone. So I'm going from the widest angle, and then it's really easy to go from the widest angle to, you know, the normal zoom and then 2x zoom just with the push of a button on an iPhone. Again, with my phone, there's actually some pretty good detail, surprisingly. Drone again. I used a drone on each one of the days to just as a transition shot. but you can actually see the difference in the leaves. A lot of leaves fell out between day 1 and day 3. And this is the end of the video, and I use all of my cameras again. This is the GoPro that you're looking at. This is back to the iPhone 11 Pro that my wife is holding. And then that's the 1DX Mark II, GoPro. So for that shoot, I used every camera that I had. I used my GoPro, my phone, my handheld Sony, my 1DX Mark II, and my drone, just so I could get different types of shots and different types of looks, and for practical reasons too. You also have what are known as mirrorless cameras. So if you look inside the body of this camera, you can see that there's a mirror. The image is reflected off the mirror up into the optical viewfinder. And then on a mirrorless camera, there is no mirror. It just goes straight back into the back screen, the digital sensor. And they are generally smaller cameras, what I would say in between this size and this size. That was my first camera starting out. I miss how small it was. I miss how easy it was to shoot with. I miss the capabilities that mirrorless cameras have, being able to look straight through the digital viewfinder to shoot your video. You can't do that with DSLR. You have those. You also have just your standard camcorder cameras. It's all built into the housing, kind of like how this lens is built into this camera. They are easier to shoot with than these other cameras, but they don't look as good. They look more flat. Beyond that, you can upgrade to like a cinema series camera. They have a lot of things that you can attach to them that make your video life a lot easier than just shooting with a DSLR, but they are expensive. Beyond that, you have actual movie quality cameras like Reds. Just for the brain alone, you're going to be spending $25,000, $40,000, $60,000 before you add anything else to that. That's probably not where you're going to want to start if you're a beginner watching this video. Moving on past that, you have drones. So this is the DJI Phantom 4 Pro. I did a lot of work for car dealerships. I use this all the time for following cars around, doing establishing shots, showing different inventory that they had in at the time. It's perfect if you have clients and you have weddings and you need to do establishing shots and things like that. Unless you have a channel or a business where you're going to be doing that type of stuff for clients or shooting a lot of outdoor stuff, I would not drop the amount of money that I spent on this. This was $2,500. Some people just think the fact that you have a drone up in the air sends you back really amazing footage, but that's not always the case. Sometimes it's really boring, really flat, but it can be incredible. My point with all this is different cameras serve different purposes, just like with lenses, which I'll get into in a second. So my 1DX Mark II that you're looking at right now and this Sony RX100 Mark VII are the two cameras that out of all these I would pick to take with me anywhere. So if you go traveling, you can throw this thing in your pocket. The lens is built right into the camera. It's incredibly easy to use. It has this screen that flips up, so if you're doing vlogging, you put this on like a little tripod, you can see exactly what you're shooting. The lens contracts on its own, and that's it. That's all you need. Then you come over to the 5D Mark IV, which is kind of the standard camera that most wedding photographers use, and it also takes really good footage. So this is my B-roll camera. So that's cameras. Now, getting into the lenses, I was so new to all of this whenever I started that I didn't even know that camera bodies, which is what this is, just the body, came separate from the lenses. You could learn about lenses for years and still not know everything that there is to it, but I'm going to go over the very basics. A good way to put it is lenses give you the look of the footage that you're capturing. So I have these Cine lenses right here. Cine stands for cinema. These Cine Rokinon lenses. I got these for doing wedding highlight reels. These make really cinematic looking shots, and you can get a shallow depth of field. You can shoot someone's face and just have like their eye in focus, for example, and the rest of their face out of focus, and it gives it a really artistic kind of a look. They have a low t-stop, which means that more light can come in. They have disadvantages as well. They don't have autofocus. These are fixed lenses. If you're doing run and gun type shooting or you need one kind of lens, you're not going to want one fixed lens that is stuck at one focal length. Moving beyond the cinema lenses, the Cine lenses, which honestly I did not use a whole lot. I use them for very specific things. The lenses that I use all the time are like this Sigma 24-70 f2.8. A fixed lens means that you cannot zoom in or out. A lens like this, you can zoom in or out. 24 millimeters means 24 is the minimum focal length that you're going to be getting with this lens, and then you can zoom all the way into a 70 at a maximum focal length. Lower number, wider shot. What you're looking at right now is a 17 millimeter lens. If I attach this monster 100 to 400 millimeter lens, you would be looking through my pupil into my soul right now. So using the moon as a way to explain focal length, you can see at the bottom of this image at 27 millimeters, the moon looks like a tiny dot. That's the equivalent roughly of most cell phones. Your iPhone is at 26 millimeters on the standard wide lens. And then using the telephoto lens or the 2x zoom, it goes up to 52 millimeters. So roughly it looks about the same as the 50 millimeter in this image. So if you're trying to get a really wide angle shot, let's say of a field, like an establishing shot for a movie, you would want a wide angle lens, like a 15, 17 millimeter lens. And then to be able to see further away and to get more detail from a long way away, you're gonna need a higher number. So you would throw on a 400 or an 800 or a 1200 so that you could get great detail from really far away. You have what people refer to as the holy trinity of lenses a lot of times. Generally, that goes from a low focal length, like a 16 to a 35 millimeter, and then you have a 24 to 70 as your number 2, and then a 70 to 200 as your number 3. Between those 3 lenses, you can achieve everything from 16 to 200. If you're shooting videos solely in a studio, you're not going to need anything with a huge focal length. It's going to serve you best to have something like a 17 millimeter, where you can get wider shots like this, and then going up to a 70 where you can get a little bit closer. So that was the basics of cameras and lenses. There is no such thing as a perfect camera or a perfect lens. They all serve different purposes. That's one of the main things that I needed to learn when I first started, is I kept thinking to myself, well, isn't there just like one lens that kind of does everything? That lens doesn't exist, I promise you. What I would highly recommend doing if you're starting out with a YouTube channel and you have a little bit of money to spend on it is get a main camera, get a point and shoot camera that has a lens built right into it with a 24 to 70 f2.8 and then like a 16 to 35 millimeters so that you can go wider. That's a great starting point. That's the very basics with it. The next video, we're going to be getting into audio and lighting in part 2. So don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in part 2.